within those traumas, you need to acquire coping mechanisms to release that stress. And when you bring recreational programs like this organization does, it helps them understand that if I feel stress, I can empower myself to go through these different avenues to release my stress. Yes, I can go do photography, I can play ball, I can do writing, I can go take a mentorship class. I have different avenues that I can explore, but also the importance of
some of them I actually admire that they're here, searching for help. Because when I was that age, I wasn't so open to trying to change the circumstances and things like that. So when I meet them, I see that there is some hope left because they're here.
Into the communities and now trying to get to a big goal of getting the housing for all of that. So it's like you guys are just like branching even further up and up and up, which is a great evolution on that.
I received advice that I hated at the time, but it's like so true. Like things have to get worse in order for them to get better. And I think it's whenever we encounter any form of suffering, like immediately like I need this fixed right this second.
Okay guys, welcome to the Ethics Guild podcast. You have with me today an incredible human being. We have Vidal. He's from the Youth Justice Organization. And he's going to talk a little bit about what they do for the community and how they embrace the youth and also how they help them develop through hard times. And we also have my co-hosts, Autumn and Kevin. And don't forget, guys, subscribe, hit that comment, leave questions if you're curious. We're definitely going to try to pass those questions to Vidal so he can answer that, and we will definitely display them. And hit that like button. We need your support to continue with this amazing program we have going around. So Vidal, thank you for joining us today and letting us do this here in your facility. Tell us a little bit about the Youth Justice Organization.
So, hello everyone. Youth Justice Network, formerly known as Friends of Rikers Academy, has been around for 35 years. We started on the floors of the schools of Rikers Island. So on Rikers Island, notoriously, you were able to go to Rikers Island if you were 16 or 17, even if you weren't an adult. So that kind of put a strange like little loophole because they were 16 and 17 incarcerated, but they still needed to go to school, right, by law. So Rikers Island ends up creating a school, right? From there, the organization sprouts, being a lifeline when you get out, just someone to call, just a friend, right? Hence the name Friends of Rikers Academy. Someone you can be. I remember hearing stories, this started in 1990, I wasn't even born, but I remember hearing stories of being granted a small little office in a building and just 4 people working, and some of them maybe interns, and just trying to help these young men get out. And mind you, at that time in 1990, there were 26,000 people being housed on Rikers Island amongst the multiple facilities. Yesterday I checked, and it's about 7,000 now. So we've made great strides in the last 35 years. There's much more to be done, but that's the origin of Youth Justice Network, formerly Friends of Rikers Academy, and we're still here doing the same work. We've expanded our services. Now we still have interns, but we don't have just 3 people working anymore, right? And the beautiful thing about that, I was saying yesterday too, some of our interns that come and just stop by, maybe they stay for a long period of time, but it almost seems like the bright young minds of the future, or the freedom fighters of the future, make a stop here, gain some tools and some moral lessons, life lessons, and take it on with them.
That's amazing. How because of a law at Rikers Island, you have to provide, I guess, like a scholar, academia, and how this organization saw that as an opportunity to be a bridge for the youth that was incarcerated to expand their wings outside. And for 35 years doing that in the expansion, it talks about their commitment to the youth and trying to get these individuals that have committed a crime outside of that criminal mindset and that environment too, you know. I don't know if Autumn or Kevin want to have a question for you.
Can you walk us through the framework? So when you have a guy come in here, what are like some of the tools that you guys give them? What do you guys work on? Can you break that down for us?
Yes, so as of a few years ago, we had access to multiple facilities. So at our peak, I'll give you our peak, right? At our peak capacity on Rikers Island, we're in multiple facilities, multiple buildings. I think we still might have an office there, but I think we're only allowed to go into one building at the time because of bureaucracy and things like that. But we go into the housing unit, we knock on the cell, and we ask if you need help and how can we help you. There's instances where they're apprehensive to the help. So we go back the next day and the next day until we make breakthroughs. Then we figure out what your case is looking like. What's the chances that you'll be released? Can we help that? So we have a mitigation team, it's called the Miller team, who goes and works hand in hand with lawyers, the public defenders, because in all honesty as well, some of them have lack of interest, and some of them are overworked, right? Some of them have a lot of caseload. So no matter what side of the spectrum it falls on, we're there just we can help you zero in on this case. We figure it out, the chances, then upon release, they come, they meet their advocate, which they probably already had an advocate throughout the time that since we met them. So while they're in there, they're getting video conference calls and things like that. If they're feeling unsafe in the housing unit because maybe some of the COs, we can make a call on that and try to get things fixed. Upon release, they'll come out and meet their advocate. They'll have a one-on-one, talk about what some of their plans now that they're out. If the case is lingering, maybe they're out on bail. How can we make this look more favorable in the courts? Help you get a job, education, and really just, aside from the paperwork, son, you're down with us and stuff like that, we're really just mapping out a plan on how to help you fix what you think needs fixing, right? Whether it's getting the ID, housing, or finding a job. So that's like the pathway. We'll meet you. If you're incarcerated, we'll get, we have someone there who's looking at who's being brought in, who can be helped, and we go inside the units, work with them, see when they're going to be released. When they get released, we ask them how can we help them, what challenges do they have, and we work with them until they've accomplished it.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I love that you said too, like when the inmates are apprehensive, you guys continue to show up and
Right.
pursue them. And I think that's beautiful to have someone who's like a stable presence, because it really makes you feel safe and that you can trust this person, and you guys provide that. That makes a huge difference,
No, it's remarkable. I'll give you an example. One of the advocates didn't see one of their youth members for a couple days, and I haven't heard from him in a couple days. So she went upon herself and to look to see if maybe he had gotten in a jam, been arrested, and he did. It was something minor. But immediately at that moment, the advocate went and found out that he had got arrested. We contacted our person on Rikers Island to go to the housing unit, reassure him that he's going to be okay. The Miller specialist got on it and found out his next court date so she could be there to advocate for his release. And it was just like, at that moment I was very proud because I said it within a matter of minutes. We like created an attack plan to get him out and get him the services that he needed and the help he needed. And you know, that's like the power in what we do. Just being able to identify what's going on, having personnel within the facility to let them know, you know, they can't take you away from us, even though they try, right? And then have the mitigation person be able to go to court. It's like we're there every step of the way, which is spectacular.
It's so beautiful. It's almost like you guys are like providing a fatherhood, right? Because like your father is supposed to protect or like and go out in his way to like make sure that you know you're okay and like I'm here for you. And the fact that you guys are doing that for these men, it is very admirable, you know.
Yes, it's a. I don't have any trouble waking up in the morning and coming to work. I'll tell you that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Kevin, you have any questions for Vidal?
Yeah, so I guess for the people who are resistant to the program in the beginning, how do you build their trust into joining into the program into basically taking them underneath your guys' wing? Because it's a big wing you guys have.
That does become challenging, and there's times where you have to meet them where they're at, and so if that means sometimes they're not. Sometimes an individual might not be. They might have done a lot of programming already, mandated programming that wasn't a very pleasurable experience for them. So when you come to them and you're dressed as an organization, another program, it's kind of, I've been there, done that. So what we do, at that point, we have to just be genuine because that's what's going to make us different. So we have to be genuine and be real with them, have a real conversation. And you might not come back tomorrow, but for the most part, they know where they can turn if they need help. Everyone, you can't force them to come to the program, which is why we're not a mandated program or an alternative to incarceration type program where we are obligated to send letters to the court that could possibly jam you up, which is a part of our allure. We're not in the business of trying to put you back in jail. That's not what we're about. We're here to help you. So, you can come on your own accord whenever. The doors are always open. And I'm kind of a testament to that. Wasn't mandated to the program, and a lot of times there was years in between that I didn't show up. But I always knew this was a place that I could come and that had great opportunities. And some of the people I work with here, I've had personal relationships with them for over a decade. We just created a professional relationship. That's like the power of it. So before it's a professional relationship with the youth member, more times we create a personal one.
Right.
So you can trust us and talk to us about things going on.
Right, because if something's mandated, right, I feel like there's a lack of trust there. Because you're kind of like, well, you're obligated to talk to me right now. And you kind of like automatically put your walls up, right? But I like that you're saying, like, you're leaving your doors open so like you guys come to us, and that builds more of a genuine relationship because it's like I'm actually interested in you and your experiences and your story and what you have to say, and I can see like how you can get more honey that way versus like you're forced to come here or these are the like alternatives. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, and we try to be a little unconventional and try to provide art programs and recreation programs. Aside from telling you, let's sit down in the class and let me tell you about the terrible things that society said you did. Let's go and have some fun and be people for a second, not get so heavy in the weeds all the time. Some of these pictures are from our photography program, which is another thing. So that's a part of it. Sometimes fixing the problem isn't me talking to you about the problem. Sometimes it's me giving you an opportunity to do something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like refocusing like their minds on a different subject, because like I know like some people could just sit in the heart of things, and sitting in the heart it's hard because then you can't pull yourself out and you can't lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. So like other people have to come in and have to help with the way that you lift up or the way that you could channel like that energy towards something new, something that you're learning or something like a little hobby or things like that. Because like hobbies, it can change your life. Even like skateboarding, for example. Like I skateboard a lot and it's fun, but then it's like one of the hobbies that keeps me active, keeps me exploring, and you can still connect. I guess like what are some of the like with the photography program? What are some other programs that you guys also have to get them to rediscover themselves, like their likes, and not just to harp on like the bad that happened?
Right. So we have Lens on Life, which is the photography program. They which if I'm not mistaken, it's a paid cohort as well. So they go and they take pictures. Different sessions might be focusing on different topics or different styles of photography. But ultimately, when they finish Lens on Life, they got to keep the camera. And then they do a showcase. So we had one showcase in the Columbia University Forum, right there on 125th, all the way on the west side, right there by the one train. Right, and so they showcase their photos. They got and these are youth that are coming from unfavorable circumstances, right? And now they're showcasing their photography work and their photographs for sale, $100. $100 a picture, and it goes to the youth member themselves. And it's a great experience. It's a bit posh, so it gets them, the cheese, the crackers, the grapes, right? So it's a different vibe. We have the arts and recreation, so we do that. There's a church that we work with in Harlem on Wednesdays from like 12 to 2. The youth can go and just play basketball for a couple hours, just relax, or run laps or jump rope or whatever you want to do, right? We have an art program that runs out of our Brooklyn office. So they create clothes, they do murals, some painting. There's some in our Harlem office and the Brooklyn office. There's some artwork on the walls. We should get some here. But then we have Arches, which is it's a program that was created by the Department of Probation, if I'm not mistaken. And we're one of the hubs. And that's like a youth mentoring program. 2 hours, they get a hot meal. And it's really just like, ultimately it's about discussing some of the behaviors that got you to this point in the first place. And then it becomes, we kind of like we're kicking it. Let's talk. And it's kind of like a vibe when you can go and express yourself. You don't have to be afraid or ashamed about anything that you say. Let's work through it. That's the place for it, right? We have our GED program, which is so we have a thing called CARE, which is Career, Arts, Recreation, and Education, which I think is really cool because it kind of, instead of just going to a GED program and sitting and tutoring and testing and stuff, we kind of recreate on a smaller scale some of the, like what it would have been in school, right? You would have had rec. You would have had an art class. You would have had, maybe not so much, some schools do, but a career office or something. So we couple it together. So while you're taking your GED, and that's paid also, you're taking your GED, when you're prepping for the test, you're doing arts, you're doing recreation at the gym, and at the end, you'll be, during, but ultimately when you complete, you'll have this job opportunity or internship somewhere. So it really, really gets them involved, and it gets them thinking about their education, also about work, and also just giving them that free flow of, hey, let me make some cool clothes today and stuff like that. Having a balance is really important.
You guys are adding new skills.
Yes.
I like the approach because it's exposing them to different coping mechanisms too. You gotta remember, these individuals that come to the program have had their traumas, correct? Within those traumas, you need to acquire coping mechanisms to release that stress. And when you bring recreational programs like this organization does, it helps them understand that if I feel stressed, I can empower myself to go through these different avenues to release my stress. Yes, I can go do photography. I can play ball. I can do writing. I can go take a mentorship class. I have different avenues that I can explore, but also the importance of the exposure. If you want to take somebody to learn something different from an environment, you got to test them in other environments, put them in other environments. And it's very noble what this organization does. Why? Because they're exposing them to a world they never knew before. And they're seeing something different. What happens when you see something different? Your vision of the world changes. It's like, okay, yeah, I grew up in the hood, cool, but there's more to the hood than the hood itself. There's different behaviors, there's different outlets, there's a different environment, there's different ways of talking and treating somebody. But I also love the fact that you guys are comfortable being that bridge, and you're allowing them to make the decision to come to you to learn how to be responsible. Because a lot of the times, like, our youth doesn't understand what is discipline and how to take accountability and responsibility. These three things together shape yourself. But in order to do that, you have to understand what is your value, what's your identity. Somebody that comes into the program in the beginning, you find them in the lowest points. So they don't understand what their real value is. And you can be in jail, you're still valuable. Because you still have dignity, and people want to have dignity in their life. And you guys are that bridge to let them know, it's like, hey, if you take a step here, you have an opportunity to really find your own value. Because you believe you lost it, but you always had it. So it's interesting to see how you guys expose them and you allow them to decide. Hey, we're here for you. I can take you to the river, but you're gonna have to drink the water. I can't force you to drink the water. So it's beautiful what you guys do. Now, I'm pretty sure that this program requires donations and people to come and mentor. Have you guys been getting enough of that, or is something that you guys are trying to help resources for?
Right. So
Put a smile on Vidal's face on that.
yes, we're a small organization compared to some of the other organizations, right? And thinking about it, it's remarkable that we can do all the stuff that we do, being we're not funded as the other organizations. But we definitely do encourage people to give donations so we can better do this work. I mean, you know, some of the, so like an example on why the funding is so important is the church, you know, churches do charity work. So they might say, hey, yeah, you can use the gym, no problems, it's for the youth, that's great. But we like to do a yearly picnic, a barbecue in the parks around July, August. We like to invite everyone to do some of the extracurricular activities and create the personal bonds and not be so generic. It requires funding. You know, because we have to, the money that we have is allocated towards specific programming and achieving results. You know, making sure people and individuals leave here with a better standard of living, right? So a large part of our funding goes to that, and a lot of that is generic programming. A lot of that is just, you know, sit down, let's talk about this, but some of that is extracurricular activities that are not so generic, that are unconventional, that don't necessarily speak to the problem, but helps you feel better about yourself. Like coming to the picnic amongst your peers, just having a good time, and knowing that it's not just work, it's not just a program. That's where funding, I think, with more funding, I think we can do more. Like for instance, the Arches program used to have a lot more funding, and they used to take the individuals on trips, right? Now we've picked up the bill for some of that stuff, right? For our group, right? But overall, if there was just more funding, we can do more. You know, we can share more experiences. So we went to Albany, like a lobby day, right? And you know, travel and stuff like that. And sometimes if you want to get the meetings with some of these, if you want to have a meeting with a politician and you know, just, or if you want to rally the next day at the state capitol and stuff, to have money for lodging and stuff like that, to keep up the persistence, not just going one day for a couple hours, but to have the ability to stay so I can go tomorrow and the next day so I can really try to make some headway. A lot of that stuff takes funding, so we definitely are open and accepting.
Yeah, definitely. Let's try to, you know, understand what these donations do, you know. I guess like we were talking about the importance of exposure. You know, the youth needs this kind of exposure so they can see a different world. And by seeing a different world, they can adapt new skills, new ways of life. And I like what you're saying, because if you want to be genuine, the organization doesn't provide a program. What they do is offer a different lifestyle. And when you offer a different lifestyle, what is it that you do? You expose different things. And like you're saying, it requires funding. So we encourage whoever's watching this, if you have the opportunity to make a donation, you know, do it. This is for youth to not go back into jails, which we already know they are not rehabilitation systems. They're there to keep you, unfortunately, in that system. And there's a high percentage of people that once they get incarcerated, they go back to crime because that's all they know. And the mindset in a jail system is not anything close to what this program does. It's like, I want to give you a better life. I'm going to show you what that life looks like. But this is why we need to definitely help with the donations. And what other type of donation does your organization need? Besides, the funding in terms of money.
Well, I'll give an example of something that funding helped with. So during the pandemic, our main office project that was in a state or city-owned building. So they locked it. So we couldn't get access to like files, anything. And mind you, it's the pandemic, they're not hearing nothing. We don't, there's other things going on, you can't come in here. So, so like a lot of groups were done over Zoom and stuff like that, and like to give youth their gift cards and things of that nature, we would meet them outside, right? In front of the office and just stand outside and wait and here you go, here you go, here you go. So, and then also they weren't allowing us into the facilities. So here we were trying to figure out what we were going to do.
Right.
All right. We lost a lot of staff overnight. A lot of funding was cut. It was a scary time.
Mm.
So trying to figure out, how we're going to still provide our services, we had to shift gears essentially, and we ended up getting a van called Shifting Gears that we would go into the, right? That's where we got the name from, right?
Yeah, I like that.
So we ended up getting a van so we can, since we couldn't go into the facilities no more, we would go into the community and see people if they needed help or if they wanted help. That was made possible through a donation from, I'm not sure, I forget the name, but it was from a donation that we were able to buy the van, right? And the van, now we have 2 vans, right? And we're hoping for a van for every borough, right? So that would be something that the donations would go towards, helping get another van, because we want a van dedicated to every borough. Because right now they're switching days and they're alternating and having to, map out. And that can become, strenuous and taxing. So that's an example of what funding can do to an organization, create a whole new department that is working tremendously.
And it's all about the service.
Yeah.
The donation goes to serving the people that need it the most. I was curious to understand a little bit better about, because it's very noble what you guys do to go into the jail systems and find those, I would say, those voices that feel that they don't have any more, I would say, a loud voice anymore. They've been silenced. When you meet these individuals, this youth at their most vulnerable part, what is it that you feel? What do you see in these kids? Do you see they lost hope in themselves?
It's very interesting because it's you find different things. For me, when I meet someone and we have a slight conversation, I see that some of them I actually admire that they're here, searching for help. Because when I was that age, I wasn't so open to trying to change the circumstances and things like that. So when I meet them, I see that there is some hope left because they're here, and some of them I speak to have gone through things that I haven't experienced. I'd be like, damn, if I don't know where I'd be if I had to go through that.
Yeah.
You know? So it's what I get is hope and inspiration from it, because if you're here, there was a young man upstairs a couple weeks ago. He said he's struggling staying in the groups because he really, really wants to go out and sell drugs again. But he's come every day. And, you know, that's all I hope we can provide, you know, with somewhere where you can be honest. And, you know, because I want to know that. I want to know if you are like, man, I don't want to be here. I want to go out and sell drugs again. And so when he got paid, they get paid this Friday. They got paid a couple weeks ago. When he got paid, he said, do you know what I would have had to do to get this money? So I would have had to stand on the corner for hours, looking around for police, judging people. Like we can get into that, but some of the stuff that you have to, some of the stuff that you need to do some of those things are traumatizing, right? So that's what I get from them. A lot of them are coming from different, maybe foster homes, maybe some people have great homes and they're just in the wrong crowd. It's a lot of different situations and circumstances, but when I meet them, I always get the sense of hope and, you know, and they're inspired to do something, you know?
I think when you experience trauma, it kind of like, it feels like it ages you too. Like you have all of these like worries or these responsibilities and these memories just kind of like compiling onto your back. And you feel like bricks, and you just end up feeling so like pulled down to the ground. And I like that you guys focus on community. You guys focus on stability and an environment where it's like, come as yourself, share your story, like you're saying, be honest. And I was listening to a talk the other day where it was discussing like how important the concept of play is, like just to be able to play, not scroll on your phone, but like let your mind kind of like not think, and whether that's drawing or photography, and it's through play that you find like what you're called to do in life. And some people who've experienced trauma, it feels like that's taken away from you, like you don't know what you're really called to do, you don't know what you really love to do in life. And so the fact that you guys are focusing on the humanity of these individuals, like come here and let's discover like what your passions are, and then through that you kind of like are figuring out like, okay, now how do we make new patterns to like fix these steps going forward. People need that, because if you've experienced a way of life that's different from your neighbor, it feels so isolating, because you kind of feel like you have to pretend like you're a chameleon. You're like, oh, like everything's always been a-okay. Like it's so isolating, because when you find somebody who truly doesn't understand or doesn't want to understand, you kind of just feel alone. So when you have a community who can understand and say like, I've walked a similar path to you, like I've also gone through some pretty hard routes, but like I see you and I'm showing up with you and you're not alone. That in and of itself is life changing, and to not be overlooked. And I know like a lot of stuff stems from the home, and like if we don't have maybe a good father figure, right, and how that can affect the way that we go through life. So like to collect second fathers throughout our life to rehabilitate that image that our like biological dads gave us, but to fix that image, because that's not the final say. Like we can still pick mentors and second fathers who can shepherd us through things, and you guys really provide that for these individuals who are coming to you, and it's no small feat. Like I will say that, and
like, I love that you guys are getting donations. I want to donate. I'm like, this is so good.
You know, it's funny what you guys have talked about trauma. Like, what is trauma? You know, I'm not going into like what the scientific books say, but I'm gonna give you like an explanation. That's like somebody takes a piece of you out and puts it somewhere else, and you believe it's missing, but it's reconfigured somewhere else where it's more heavy. And what does that heaviness does? It builds tension. And that tension is what makes your emotions, you know, be despaired and not balanced. And what you guys are doing is trying to give these individuals their identity back. Because somewhere they lost it, because they've been traumatized and reconfigured in so many places that they're trying to find the pieces itself to put it back where it belongs. And that's exactly what a lot of the trauma do. I'm just talking more like, so you can imagine what that looks like, you know? But it's important also mentorship. I once met a person that was broken. And I remember it said, well, mentorship is so important because that's what gives you a guideline of what you don't know. And this person, I'll never forget, said, well, I don't believe in mentorship because I'm by myself. And right in there, when I heard that, it's like, man, this person needs to be loved. That's most of the people that are broken, it's what they're missing is that love from somebody, or to find love in themselves, to understand that how can they not love mentorship? And it's easy because they have lost the initiative to love themselves and be self-sufficient. And so it's important what you guys are doing with the organization. And I don't know if Kevin has a question about like the organization.
I do want to add one thing. Some things also is nonverbal, right? So like, there's no dress code here, right? But I come dressed up purposely, sometimes even more than I have to. But I do that for a reason. Because I know a lot of the youth, and these are my peers. I know these people, right? And sometimes you feel culturally like detached from certain things, right? And I'm dressed a certain way to let them know you can too. Like, you don't have to be against it. And you can put on certain clothes and be you. You don't have to switch up. You don't have to change the way you talk. You don't have to, you can inspire someone to, there's a quote that someone says, he said, I don't dress up because I think I'm somebody. I dress up because I want to be somebody, right? And so some things are nonverbal. I come dressed up purposely so they can say, okay, all right. And give them support. Maybe they don't know how to do it, right? But look, this is how you put it together, right? But
showing them how to look fly for sure.
yeah, right. So some things are nonverbal and very intentional, right?
I love that you guys have the bands.
Yeah, I love the band.
Hopefully the van looks like the Scooby-Doo, like the mystery machine. You know?
It's kind of in all colors. It's like that, just in purple and gold. It is kind of like that. It's nice in it. They have like a TV. It serves like a so on the van, an advocate is usually there, so you can sign up with the program right at the van and meet the advocate. So like the advocate will be in there with their laptop and be able to ask you questions if you're interested. And they'll be out, with a table. Maybe they'll be playing some music. We have a sandwich board out there, letting them know. And it's so effective that sometimes fathers come up. Fathers come up and ask, hey, maybe they're trying to get their nephew or their son or something, or daughter, or sometimes for themselves. Sometimes they need a resource, I
was gonna go there.
Yeah, we was talking earlier, The organization services 16 to 24, except for the CRED program that's a part of the Career Service Center, that's 18 to 40. But, which is great now, because, you know, if I met you at 16, right? Say I met you at 16, now we'd be on Horizons or Crossroads. I met you at 16. Say you did a couple years. Let's just say. Now you're 18. You get out, come to us, you're working on stuff. All right, you get your GED, maybe it takes a few years, right? Maybe you start working. Okay, now, issue arises. It's the day before your 25th birthday. We've been with you for years. We've been, you know, developing, working on stuff, trying to build you up to be successful. And you have an issue. It's the day before your 25th birthday. But then tomorrow you turn 25. The issue didn't go away. But technically, you're not allowed to service you. Which is a very, it's just a reality thing. It's a reality thing, right? Which is great now that we have the CRED initiative, 18 to 40. So we won't be able to solve all your problems, right? Because all the services aren't 18 to 40, but we can help you with your financial issues. And, you know, sprinkle in some things here. Right?
That's really helpful with the financial issue too, because it's like when you have like the records, it's kind of hard to go back. Like people read the resume more than they read the person. And we
Say that again, Kevin.
Yeah, right. And we talk about that a lot on our show. How a resume shouldn't really reflect the person. It should be more like some trials on the job and things like that. Like you give them like little things to build into. So that's really awesome that you guys have that from 18 to 40, because it helps them develop even into it gives hope. It really does give hope. It's like, okay, my path doesn't end here. Like I could just keep going forward.
And I say too, you know, if at 17 years old, right, you decided I want to sell drugs. That's what I want to do. Or maybe there's no other options, right? Either one. And you spend the next 20 years selling drugs, right? Maybe it was sustainable, right? Maybe there was ups and downs, who knows? Maybe you got, but ultimately 20 years you spent outside. And at 37, you say, hey, you know what? I don't want to do this no more, man. I don't want to do this. There's times I've tried to do something else, it didn't work, so I have to fall back on this. Where do they turn? Because a lot of times society will say, well, you're a grown man. And pick yourself up by your bootstraps and figure it out. And my thing to that is, I can't tell a career chef that's been cooking for 20 years to go be a plumber now. He has to learn that. He has to learn. It's gonna take time. And so I say that to say, and I already knew that. But in the credit program and in the class, there's some 40-year-olds there. And I'm sure the scenario, it's probably not that specific. Maybe it wasn't drugs, but maybe whatever they were doing for the last few years, you can't just switch on something else. You have to, it's like going through a training. And they have to have the opportunity to go through the training. Maybe, for a youth, it's tough. It's for sure tough. But I speak on the older men because everyone you can't get to everyone. And some fall through the cracks. And some don't want to come initially. Some are tired of the programs. And by the time they get it, by the time they want to seek the help, they're aged out. Everyone's not gonna make that decision before they're 24.
Yeah.
Some people are gonna make it later.
And also we got to think about like the system itself, right? Like for example, if you're transitioning from the outside world, and let's say you want to find a new job, think about what that looks like. Even to get an entry level job, they're requiring these things that don't even match with entry level. They're not giving an opportunity at the most basic to open opportunities for people that are transitioning from a bad habit into a good one. So how discouraging that can be, you know, and also, you know, if you have a criminal record, are we being unbiased about that? Can we see the projection of somebody's career? And there's so many factors that affect how we make decisions for someone else that's trying to survive and trying to create a survival mode into living. You know, because that's what everyone wants to do. They want to live. And, you know, in that struggle to find survival, it can be very discouraging. What do you guys think? What he's saying is a true fact.
Yeah, I mean, even, like, I know an individual who had, like, has just recently been diagnosed with mental health illness, and they're medicated now, everything's great, but, like, cognitively, I guess, there was, like, a shift, right, of learning in the workforce, and so you're not required by law to inform your boss, like, hey, like, I have something, like, you don't have to disclose that, right, so the learning style is a little slower than, like, normal pace, right? Where they used to be, but that's okay because you still have to like learn and grow here. So the person who was training this individual was getting so frustrated and just throwing work, and you know, this individual was like, well, you have to train me so that I can learn the systems of your workplace so that I can help to benefit you guys. And she was like, no, like you have to follow what I'm doing and do it faster. And she had just started the job, and then the boss like fired her within a span of like 4 days because they weren't working at their fastest pace. And it made me sit and reflect, and I'm like, is there no grace period to have somebody come on, train them, show like somebody how the functions of the job works, or like have we really lost that sense of, I don't even know if it's humanity or just like,
It's definitely humanity.
right, humanity for like, you're hiring me to do a job that like, I also have to like service you guys, like there has to be a relationship here, and it can't just be like, I'm not a machine, like I have to learn. So that kind of like makes me think like, well, for individuals too who are coming out of prison, I really doubt that they're being given a shot fairly, because it's rare when you find, it's like really like God sent, right? When you find somebody who's like, they take you on, they see you under your wing, they mentor you, they're like, we want to give you these skills for life. I feel like we've lost that. I don't know if it's because of the increase in technology and AI, or just like everybody's so on this fast-paced speed of success, money, to the top, that you're forgetting about like these encounters with each other, and like you're teaching skills to people, and the idea of mentorship. I feel like all of that's kind of gone out the window.
And you hit it on the nail, because mentorship is a process.
Right.
It's not immediate gratification. Like for example, somebody that will come to, let's say, this program needs to understand it's like, yes, this is a lifestyle change, and what does that take? There is no immediate gratification on this one. I love his example. He was talking about like, I could be selling drugs, and maybe there's an immediate gratification like that. But again, what are the consequences? So the consequences could be many that are negative and not so much positive. But if you establish yourself in a program, a mentorship program, what happens? It's a long process that's going to change your life. And that's exactly what you come to an organization like this. You want to change your life. And how do you change your life? you gotta first understand the process and also understand the consequences of that process. That means that, for example, you need to discipline yourself. You gotta be responsible. You gotta hold yourself accountable. You gotta be respectful. You gotta carry yourself in a certain way. You have to also project yourself in a short and long-term period. So I do think that, especially in today's world, we're looking for immediate gratification, but immediate gratification also leads to immediate problems most of the time. So when you go on a mentorship program, understand that a mentorship program takes years to change a lifestyle. I was going to ask you something, Vidal, because education is very important in the development of a different environment to a youth. Like, for example, do you guys have connections where trade schools and colleges, what does that look like, or community colleges?
So we do have a connection with BMCC, Project Impact, right? And John Jay, through the Navigator Certificate Program. And it's interesting, right? This program is a very holistic program, meaning we have the certificates, GED, we send our youth and encourage them to go and seek higher education, right? But we also, before I started working here, I was out of work for a very long time, from my own choice, right? And so I came to get a job, right? And I said, I couldn't do that. But my intention was just to get a job, right? And do the work that I knew I could do. I had no intentions on going to school or anything like that. And lo and behold, a certificate scholarship came through a connection that we have, and I accepted it. So not only is this a transformational organization for the participants, it's all around, also with the employees, So yes, so we definitely encourage all our participants and anyone in the organization to always seek more education. And I think it's almost to like a lead by example kind of thing. Because now some of the participants seen when I started, right? And then when I told me I'm going to school, and I was like, yeah. It kind of like, it's surprising to them. And it's like the nonverbal thing, like just leading, just doing it, and letting them see that it's possible is a key component. And just to double back a little bit on where some of the funding goes, also for anyone who's interested, so you know where it's actually being utilized. Going on Rikers Island is tough. Going to Horizon and Crossroads is tough, especially every day fighting the fight. Trying to fix someone's life and fix your own is quite a task, right?
A lot of commitment.
Right, and so mental health for staff and well-being for staff is one of the top things too, because you have to, if you don't have the people to do the work, then the work's not going to get done. So, some of the funding also goes to like trying to make work as less stressful as possible when you're going to Rikers Island, right? Like how are you going to do that? When you work with this kid and you get to know them and they're sweet, caring, and then they get sentenced to 12 years. And you're like, you have to go home with that, you know? So some of the donations will go towards just making more favorable work environment, whether that's better benefits or something, just so the people doing the work can feel that their families and themselves are more secure.
Yeah, that's honorable. I have a personal question, because
Yes.
I'm a veteran myself, a war veteran. Do you guys have
Yes, sir.
Do you guys have any veterans in this program? Because a lot of veterans that come out suffer from
Very good question.
homelessness. They go through also a lot of like traumas, and they don't know where to restart their life. And perhaps if some veterans were to come to this program, the fundings for veterans are big from the Department of Defense.
Interesting. So it's possibly and most likely because of the age. Because if we're only servicing 24,
Yes,
they're probably just going into service or thinking about it, right?
or coming out.
Right. So, with the credit program, I assume we'll start seeing some more veterans, and that is a thing that is something to explore. So, yeah, I'll keep a lookout on that.
There's a
That'd be
lot
very
of,
helpful.
like, I can tell you one thing, in the Department of Defense, they're the ones that they put all the money into the different, like the Veterans Affairs and Veterans Organization. There's a lot of, I would say, revenues in it. The issue is there's not a lot of organizations that really do a great job for the veterans. So what happens is that they portray they do it, but they're not qualified in those realms of how they want to serve. So they're like, they have a good will, but they don't have the qualifications, they don't have the right staffing, or they just do it just to, hey, sign here and I'll get paid through my grants. So this organization is completely different. It's a serious organization that goes above and beyond, and perhaps that's what our veterans need out there. So perhaps something, I'm just throwing it in there.
No, it's
that can
very
be thought of.
That is something to explore, but I'll put it like this. So, when it comes to nonprofits, a nonprofit can be accused of something called mission creep, right? Which is Friends of Rikers Academy, which you're going for veteran grants. What happened to the island? What happened to the youth? It's almost like, so organizations, and that's where, and it's really it's not something you can get put on trial for, but it's more of an integrity thing. On, am I just applying for contracts to get money, or am I applying for contracts to solve the cause that I'm fighting for?
It changes the niche.
Yeah, it changes. So recently, with the pandemic, the organization has shifted. We were, like I said, 93% came from Rikers Island. We were Friends of Rikers Academy. That's what we did. With the pandemic, a lot of things changed. And like I said, we weren't going to the island anymore. Now we're in communities. So that is a part of the reason of the name change. Along with trying to be disassociated with the island, part of the name change was, well, we're servicing a lot more than just the island now.
Right.
So it becomes Youth Justice Network. And, who knows what the future holds? That's so cliche, right? But yeah, I can see it. I think the sky's the limit for us, and I think we can expand, and we are creative enough, and we have enough creative people around to grow, but I would, that's the thing, we want to keep some integrity and very intentional about what we go after and trying to stay true to ourselves and possibly, because like we have a new initiative that we're working on. It's probably going to take a few years, like 3 or 4, but it's something that we don't have now that we're trying to create, and that's another, like, they will be on another level, right? It's something called Equity House. Right now, we don't really offer housing support. We can refer you to a shelter or somewhere that you can sleep, but we don't have housing. We would have to send you somewhere. So we're trying to create that. In the next 3 or 4 years, hopefully we have it, but like, then again, that's when now we're transforming just servicing the island or Horizon, and when you get out, we can get you a phone. So now, trying to get you a house, right? So definitely going to keep that in mind, because in our growth, that is something we can definitely look at.
Yeah, and the reason I bring this is because, like, for example, an organization that has a good intention like this one can use those resources not only to help the veteran, but the whole community. And the veterans are part of the community. It's just we're a small percentage. Only 1% joins the military. So, but they risk their life for the country. So we have, like, for example, a lot of jobs that make a contract with the government that, for example, they hire veterans, but why? Do they really believe in the veteran, or because there's a tax credit cut for it? So, and I love what you just said. If you're gonna do this, you're not gonna do it because you're going to follow a grant. You wanna do it because it's the right thing to do. And that's what makes you guys different. Because who cares about what comes in? It's like how we're gonna help them better and how we're gonna serve them, and they're also part of the community. Just like an ethnicity, it's part of the community. Veterans happen to be just a small group that, like I said, a lot of them are hurt, and they don't know where to find help. And you see them at the VA hospitals a lot, talking about their war routines, and war stories. And sometimes they just want to be heard, but they just don't know how to start their life. And this organization offers that. It's like, hey, we can help you with finding your life identity so you can get it started. But something, like you said, something could be thought ahead for future reference. But I know Kevin wanted to ask you a question. Let's go for it.
I love how you guys are in the communities and how it's been transferring from like one island into the communities, and now trying to get to a big goal of getting the housing for all in there. So it's like you guys are just like branching even further up and up and up, which is a great evolution on that. I guess one of my questions is how do you guys, so I guess I'm assuming here, so there's a treatment for after incarceration, and then there's probably like awareness before getting incarcerated. And I think like maybe the bands out in the communities having you guys literally be in the places where the community is, rather than just having the community come over to you guys. How do you give awareness for a life that went from incarceration to, hey, this is life that was incarcerated into, then they join that program, and this is like now, versus like if they didn't join that program, this is the many avenues that they can take. But when you guys join this program, we're guaranteed to give you guys an avenue of just like growth, because everybody that's here, like even like the staff down to the person who just walks in, all are trying to better themselves. So it's just like you don't have anybody here that's not trying to better themselves. So if they weren't trying to better themselves, they wouldn't necessarily like be a part of it. So I guess my question is, how do you help with the awareness part before life in incarceration, before the life, and then how do you help the awareness even afterwards? Because you can hit two birds, one stone in a community.
So you're asking for someone who was incarcerated? How do we bring awareness to?
Like someone who, basically like youth before they get into trouble with the borders.
It's like a preventive system. Do you have like a preventive system for the youth that hasn't reached the criminality?
So like being proactive as opposed to
Yes.
reactive.
Yes.
The funny thing is, a lot of these, the way it's set up, I don't want to say that one out, but the way it's set up for the most part is the services come after, right? There's not too many initiatives for being proactive. Most of them are being reactive. Arches is one of the examples of where we told Department of Probation, why are we waiting until they get on probation for them to come here? Why can't they just come before they ever get locked up? And they were open to it. They said, okay, you know what, you're right. But a lot of times it's getting more like that now, I would say. That's what I'll say.
But for that, you will need like a parenthood program, because you got to remember.
We actually do have.
Yeah.
Friends to Fathers is kind of a parenting program, and then we have a program called Family Matters. And then the CRED thing is another proactive, it's a proactive program, because we don't ever have to have been arrested to get into CRED. The only requirement is that you live in a violent neighborhood. So that is the proactive piece right there. Like, you're at risk, let me grab you, and you can join. So there are more proactive avenues. There's not as many as there should. A lot of them are after the fact. Then we get introduced to you after you get arrested. But this organization has a couple of proactive avenues. The Lens on Life, I mean, almost all of them are pretty much, you can just pretty much sign up. The GED, Career Center, the arts, the photography program, Arches, Shifting Gears, you don't have to have been arrested. There's the only ones which is reactive would be Friends to Fathers, which is you have to have. You probably can't answer, but what the requirement is, you usually end up in Friends to Fathers because you caught a case and ACS is involved. And now, to alleviate that situation, you take a fathering program, right? And then there's one more that just, and then we have our Family Matters program, which is reactive because you meet them in family court, right? So there's an issue going on there, and then we have a staff in family court, and then that's when you meet them, and then you try to figure out how you can best help them. But so there are some proactive avenues, and some are reactive,
Because they have to be at some point.
Yeah, because it's kind of like how everyone's not going to be honest about their relationship and that they're arguing in the house all the time. So you might not have the opportunity to be proactive. You might only find out after the fact. So some of these things are inevitable.
Yeah, it's like the heat in the fire. It's like let's how to tame this fire out. It's like
And it's difficult because think about it, like when you're before you're 17, who makes decisions for you? It's your parents. This is why I would say it's hard to be proactive in that aspect because the ones that are providing the environment atmosphere is not the child, is the father and the mother. And perhaps because of their low resources, they're forced to live in a neighborhood that provides danger. So how can you educate the parent to provide the right coping mechanisms for a child that lives in that environment? Now, I can tell you because I come from a third world country, really bad neighborhood. We're talking about third world countryhood, which is nothing like this. This is like you live in a palace here compared to the hoods down there. All right, bad. And my grandmother, I think I told this story, was not even finished elementary school. All her kids finished college, doctors, well educated. All of us became well educated, but she had to sacrifice for that. And trust me, none of us became, in part of that environment. But that didn't mean we didn't play soccer with them. That didn't mean we didn't have conversation with them. But what I like about that environment was that they knew we weren't that, but we were cool, right? We were part of that neighborhood, part of the culture, but we just chose a different path in our careers. And we respected each other. When we saw them doing their thing, we were not there to judge. And it's funny because as I would come late at night from a party or something, they were like, "God, don't touch that guy. That's my guy right there." So you can still develop in a really bad neighborhood and not be influenced by the badness around. It's all about the structure, the nucleus of the integrity of your family, your value. But for that, like you were saying, in order to be proactive about that, it's like there needs to be almost like a program just dedicated for those parents that do want to participate in these programs to kind of survive and live in that environment and don't let that influence you and your child. But that's very hard. I can tell you, not even the educational system can do that correctly. So, and they see kids from the age of 4 to, their young adult life. They can come out with a solution.
No, that's so true. I heard someone who's been doing this for a long time. It was just in passing. He was walking, getting into a cab, and I was leaving the building and getting into the cab. And he said briefly, somebody was doing this new gig or something, and he's like, "Yeah, this is the next level of it. This is the next level of it." And what he was saying was the next level is going into the houses and working with the families and not being that's the proactive part right there, going into the household with the family. Because if I got a 19-year-old who's coming to the program and he's trying to get help, he's looking for a job, but his dad don't got a job, and mom is doing whatever she's like, how he's only here for a couple hours and then he goes to a place that's almost counterproductive to what we're doing.
It's regressive.
Right? And so, you have to go, is there groceries in the house? What are the parents going through? Everyone has issues, so that is definitely like the next step. I don't know if, and maybe the reason that it hasn't been done yet is maybe the people who provide the funding and stuff don't see a need for it. Maybe they're like, what? And maybe it's you're 37, get it together, right? You're grown, I don't figure it out kind of thing. But that is definitely, that's the next step of the work that we're doing.
But it's almost like you gotta sell the bigger picture. The reason why we target these adults is because they influence their child. But the difficult part is how can you do this without being intrusive? That is the part where where you need good psychology to put in, like, you gotta plant the seed on those brains. Hey, just like the strategy you guys hear, is beautiful. You plant the seed, and you let the person throw the water so they can raise it up. So kind of like the same strategy. Like, hey, we don't want to be intrusive, but you're struggling, living your life, you still haven't figured out your career, and you feel like you haven't gone anywhere. You might want to take a look at this.
Yeah.
And give it a good, reading, and let me know what you think.
And that's the thing about our identity, and what I was saying about mission creep. Because if I'm going into your house now working with fathers, am I still youth justice network? Right?
It's almost like you gotta branch out.
Yeah, right? So that's like the other thing. And so, like I said, we've been around 35 years, it's our 35th year, and for 30 years, the majority of or the people that we serviced came from Rikers Island. Now it's about 50%. And that's in the last 5 years.
What is the common behavior you see from people that comes from Rikers?
Impatient. They want everything fixed now. And and it's almost because they feel they lost time. So I need to get this done now. I have no more time to waste. And a lot of times that can be a detriment to them. So you have to slow down for a second. It'll come in due time. But it's hard when a person's been sitting on Rikers, which is a terrible place too. I mean, when I was there it was bad, but now it's even worse. That's crazy to say that it's worse now. It might be worse now than it's ever been. I believe so. But yeah, when you've been in there, and you have to imagine it, because I was in that position, you're on the phone talking to your peoples. You're trying to reconcile for what you did. You're like, when I get out, it's gonna be fixed. I'm gonna fix this. I got it. Don't worry about it. You're making a lot of promises to people and to yourself. And so when you get out, you're kind of unreasonable. And you're not really thinking practically. You're just
Guilt and pressure can build a lot of.
When I got released from prison, I was only out for 4 months and I violated. I went back. When I got out, I thought I had the whole world figured out. I thought I had sat there in my time away and figured everything out and was ready. And I got out and was moving. I just didn't have it all figured out. I wasn't moving too fast, but I still wasn't ready. Because when I went back in, I had a whole totally different approach.
It's like the theory and the practice are completely different.
And I came out and changed a couple things up, finished parole and all that, but so I know that feeling of when you come out, you feel, because when you're in there too, you're trying to better yourself however you can, whether it's be a better criminal or be a better person or a better physique or whatever it is, you're trying to better yourself. So you come out feeling prepared. You come out feeling like you've worked on something, like you've worked on yourself. You feel like you've come out better. And a lot of times you're not being reasonable to the real world and how much more work you need to do. So that's what I find a lot, the impatience and just trying to get things done.
Yeah. I received a piece of advice that I hated at the time, but it's like so true. Like things have to get worse in order for them to get better. And because I think it's whenever we encounter any form of suffering, it's like immediately like I need this fixed right this second because I can't fathom like how much low to the ground I'm gonna get. Like, and how do you want me to just sit and not be stressed out about it and kind of be happy. And this person said to me like, but it's going to recover in time. And I couldn't fathom it, and I was so upset, and I'm like, what do you mean? And then over time, over the course of a year, things fell into place. But where I was the year before, I could not reconcile that time is what needed to fix things and to fall into place. So sometimes that's one of the hardest things to wrap your mind around, and I can't imagine like having so many people thinking that too, like I need this fixed right now, right then, because it's kind of like you trip yourself up, because it's like, well, I'm already losing time, I'm already like past the starting line, and like I need to get where I need to be, and it's like just to have some grace period, like yes, things happen, yes, things didn't work out, but they will align in time, and it's like I cringe when I hear it because I know it's the truth, and like there's like the healing process takes time. And then just to circle back around when you were saying like to go inside and work with the fathers, I think it is still correlated to the youth, because a lot of the like spider web of what happens stems from our parents, like, or in our family home, in our atmosphere, and like whether it's even just carrying the stress or the burden of what they're going through and feeling like, well, how am I going to fix their life, or maybe I want to distract myself from what I grew up in, and just however that comes out. And I think like going in to try to like teach these mothers and fathers, like this is how you keep your internal refuge, because our homes are supposed to be refuges, and when they're not, you're kind of like in fight or flight mode all the time, because you're looking for just a place to kind of like breathe and relax. But when it's not even in your home, it's like you're kind of jaded to the world. So I think to go into the homes and work in that system will have such a good benefit on you, because it's like, okay, if I can show a mom like the tools she needs in order to better mother her children, or let me teach a father how he can better his children. It's so like it's work that can be overlooked from people in like higher positions, but it's really not. Like that's the main job. And I talk about this a lot on the show too, but I feel like the most important job in our like lifetime is to be a parent, is to be a mom or a dad, because like that is how you shape, you know, like the person who you're raising, and that's how you end patterns. But how can you stop a pattern that you don't even know you have? So
that's, I think one of the hard things too is like the statistic of the men that are in prison. It comes from a single mom household, and it comes from like living a lot from like in the emotional state, like not learning how to like control the emotions that men feel. It's like moms aren't gonna be able to understand that, and they don't know how to channel it or get into like for example, channeling could be working out, going for a run, doing a couple other things, right? So like how would you guys strategize to hit the mothers, right? Because the mothers the mothers are doing the best that they can, right? And they're going to do the best that they can because they have to for their kids. So the single mother, she's not causing the problem, but it's just part of the equation. 80% to 90%, right? It's a high statistic. It's way more than the 50%, or even past like 70%. So I guess like one of my questions is how do you even target the mothers for the youth?
That is what we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah, right. No, right.
I love his honesty. I love his honesty. It's like that's
Because to be quite honest, right?
that would be a trillionaire.
Yeah, right.
It's like this podcast will be blowing right now. So but I love his honesty.
Because the thing is, All right. This contract that came, Friends of Fathers, that was, someone said, hey, we have money for this. Where's the Friends to Mothers?
Mm.
Right? That wasn't, hey, you want to service the mothers? That wasn't proposed. Society is very, try not to get in trouble. Society
We have freedom of
treats, yeah, but just, for the organization.
Yeah,
Oh,
But-
yes, yes, also,
Society
that's they have
treats women away, right? It's historically, right? There's a distinct difference between how men are treated and how women are treated, and that goes with the positives of society. So if you're rich or whatever, or, the man, society would treat the man in a certain way as opposed to the women in the same position. And it's true for the negative.
what it really should be. There's a misunderstanding of what a man should be. So it's portrayed in a different way.
So when these initiatives are being brought up, what I'm saying is when these initiatives are being brought up, a lot of times women are left out of the conversation. It's a lot of times geared towards young men.
Is it because men commit more crime usually, and this organization is about rescuing criminals?
I think that is, I think it's a lot more blatant, I would say, right? It's a lot more blatant, and for example, to be quite frank and blunt, right? A young man in a certain predicament will most likely do a certain set of crimes to gain money, robbery, sell drugs, a couple of things, right? A young woman that's in unfavorable situations, for the most part, doesn't do those things, right? They're more likely to be geared toward some type of sexual work, a dancer or something like that. And I feel it's not as, maybe that's exactly what I said, it's not as blatant, it's not as out there. And so maybe they deem it not a priority, right? Because I told someone, a young man and a young woman that's going through things, they both end up turning to the streets, but in different ways.
Right.
And you see the dudes on the corner a lot. You don't see the young ladies as much. And that could be it. Perception is key. So
I definitely want to give a comment. I know Autumn has one too. There's also the stigma of what men should be portrayed as. If we portray men as being powerful, as being rude, as being the one on the streets and running the streets, and we define that as toughness, right? What we talk about, New York tough. What is New York tough? Being rude? Really?
Yeah.
Is that what toughness? I can tell you what toughness really looks like. Somebody that takes themselves to work, goes to school, that's tough because you're committed every single day to a common habit that's gonna take you to success. What's tough? A single mom that raises 3 kids and those 3 kids go to college. Isn't that tougher than running the streets where you're just hanging out with your friends all day? What is tougher? And I think that's the stigma we have about what a man's toughness should be. The one that shouts, curses, the one that doesn't do anything, the one that's on the street, pretending to be tough, but in reality, are their actions being tough? Are they really taking a responsibility and carrying a heavy cross and say, I can do this, and I'm gonna make this cross lighter as I go through the trends? Unfortunately, we have put a seal in the streets of what toughness means. But honestly, that's just, a lot of time, that toughness is displayed as laziness. I'm sorry, but it is. It's irresponsibility. It's lack of accountability. It's taking freedom to the excess part and make it so radical to the point where you lose yourself in that radicality of freedom. Life is hard to keep it balanced because you got to fight the force of going to the left and the right, and that is the struggle of life. That's the real strength. If you keep yourself in the middle as you walk through your life, and I do think we men are put in that stigma that we never need help from our female partner, or that we are supposed to be not displaying emotions. This is why we get more in trouble with crime. Man, statistically, why? Because we don't channel our emotions. We keep it to ourselves. I'm not saying everyone, but most of us do. And then how do we take away that frustration? We go do some actions with that energy and that trauma and that stress that we have already built in. And that leads into bad activity. But you also have people that go play sports. And they become great sportsmanship. Why? Because they're using that energy in a way that is fruitful. So I do want to give a call out for men out there. Being a real tough guy, it's taking responsibility, keeping yourself centered the whole time, because that requires a lot of energy. It requires a lot of efforts and also commitment to yourself. And when you finish, trust me, that long commitment is so much gratifying than getting any immediate gratification that doesn't build really any value. I know you have a comment.
No, I was just gonna say, I actually like that you guys are focused on the men, and like teenage boys, or just like whatever age they're coming in, because I feel like we do need something that's geared specifically towards men, and because if we pour love and life into our men of our society and our culture, if we pour like wisdom of like, you're worthy, you are loved, you have an impact on the people around you. If you we raise up our men, like our culture right now, I will say, like they like to tear down men, and like, but then if something happens on the train and like a woman gets mugged, and then they look at a man and they're like, well, why didn't you step in and protect her? And he's like, well, you guys, that's toxic masculinity, right? So I think we need to repair and rebuild our young men, and that way they can go out and they can treat a woman with respect, or they can love a woman, and like it's a ripple effect. And like I know there are beautiful programs geared towards women and mothers, and that helps them, like prevents them from choosing abortion, and like empowers them on how to be a mom. But we need, like, I feel like men need programs that are geared specifically towards them. So I like that you guys do that.
And we do work with women.
Yeah.
And we just don't have a dedicated program that's funded for women.
Right.
But in the absence of that, like today they're doing a woman leadership group in the Harlem office that's run by the women's staff. It's not a funded program. That's something that they wanted to do because they see the lack of resources or opportunities for the women in this space.
Yeah.
So, we do see the need, and we are actively, trying to change that, and whatever funding we don't have, we just pick up the slack.
One of my favorite tools
Like 10 minutes.
One of my favorite tools that Jordan Peterson is, he's a psychologist. If you look him up on the internet, he's pretty cool. It's really nice. YouTube, he has a lot of YouTube channels and a lot of YouTube stuff on there. But one of my favorite tools that he gives out is to treat your pen like a sword and a paper like your shield, and to be very articulate with the way you speak. I'm practicing that, of course. You can hear it within my studies here and there. But like for example, like when you have like your pen and your shield, like you're able to think clearer. You're able to come up with different ways to attack a situation, and it develops a person to even become more. Like for example, you're a great speaker. You've been talking like so articulately. You have your phrases right, and you have like your amazing speaker, and like the way that you talk also has an impact. It's gonna have an impact on our audience, and it's gonna have an impact on changing their lives.
Thank you.
So, like, how would you? What kind of practices would you give for people at home to do for their speech?
Gotcha. So, I wasn't always this good of a speaker. There's two things to that. If jail and prisons did what they were intended to do, so I was my experience, I'm blessed to have these, to have gone, for being in prison the way that I was, having that prison experience. Not blessed to have gone to prison, but I went to prison and I could have had many other types of experiences. But I had one that was rehabilitating. That's what I had. So I see what it can be if they put in the effort, right? So like I had a pastor who told me, so the word penitentiary comes from penitence, which is something that priests do when they go to become a pastor, right? And they go into a room, and they lock themselves up, and they repent for their sins, and when you come out, and you're supposed to be absolved. So that's where the word comes from. So the penitentiary is supposed to be a place that you can go and repent for the crime you committed and whatnot. I was able to have that experience. And I had people who took a liking to me who, like the pastor who explained that to me, right? That was very helpful. It helped me go through the rest of my prison time. And other things that happened. Shock. It's a boot camp program that I did 6 months in, and every Sunday we would have to speak in front of like a crowd. And before that, I didn't do that. Like I've never I didn't want to. I was a brat in school. I wasn't doing none of that stuff, right? So here I am, and now I have to because I'm trying to get out early. And I wanted to get better. So like for an example, I was watching some movie one time when I was locked up. Sitting there, I used to have a book of things that I wanted to get better at. And one of the things was, I was watching this movie and the actor, something to do, he was being real charming. And I seen how it was working for him. So I was like, I said, I gotta be real charming. Right? So yeah, just being intentional about things. Like, I was out in the streets a long time, I used to not smile, purposely. And then I realized, smiling will disarm people. Like, you should smile. It just, you have to be intentional on what you want to, on how you want to better yourself. Like, I've studied the science of social dynamics. So I've learned things to help me navigate. So it just didn't happen. You have to want to do it, and you have to practice it and utilize it when you can, and constantly. So most people would agree that public opinion is Pablo Picasso is the greatest artist of all time, right? That's what most people would agree. But I only see one quote from him, but this is probably his best quote is, good artists copy, great artists steal, right? So if I see someone who's being charming, then I'm like, oh, I'm not saying to myself, well, I'm not going to be like that because I'm going to be kind of, no, I'm taking that. I'm taking that. Oh, all right, that's what you're doing? And so I'm constantly doing that, like even to this day. You know, it might be clothing, it might be something you said. I'm very open to learning. I'm very open. So I am the same me at the core, but I'm very different than
10 years.
5-10 years ago. But that is stuff that
It made you who you are today too, which is can't regret that. Can't
Right.
put that down. You know, it's like that's how you became who you are.
So the advice I would give is the people you admire, copy them. Just try to be whatever traits you see, what you think you want to have for yourself, steal it and just do it and start working on it, and yeah, it'll happen.
And get your own.
Yeah.
So guys, what is your major takeaway of today's show so we can close this up? And
Yeah. I love this whole program you guys have and how you guys are helping people just better themselves. And that's the whole goal of it. It's just to become better than who we were yesterday. And the ripple effect of that just changes to who you are. So it's a really noble, honorable program, and thank you for working here too, for coming on the podcast with us. You're changing lives, man.
For sure, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
you are.
I was gonna say, thank you for your time, your passion, and the leadership that you're giving to all these individuals who come to you. Thank you for educating us too. I feel like I learned so much, and it just makes me really happy. I feel like it restores my hope that there's a program like this right now for people to come to, and where they have community and they can just feel seen. So thank you for everything that you're doing and for talking and taking your time out.
Do you have any major takeaway about this experience with us?
Oh, you guys are awesome. I'm definitely gonna check out some of your episodes. I didn't know what to expect. And I'm like, yesterday.
Like a bar fight, maybe?
No, I'm like, yesterday I'm like, yo, I didn't ask this dude no questions. I didn't say, how long, what's this, what are we gonna talk about? But I was kind of like, hey, we'll just see what's up when we get there, right?
We hope we didn't disappoint.
No, it was great, and I didn't tell many people, so this is gonna be a surprise when it comes out, and I send it out to everyone, and I'll see what they think, how I did, and
Maybe you can help us have them subscribe to our channel.
yes.
Definitely
yes,
helps us.
definitely.
We actually have a lot of great programs. And my major takeaway about today is not only the program is fascinating, it's just Vidal's way to take this challenge and acquire the right skill sets to be here and leading a whole team in this program. What does that mean for the community? Is that there are examples to follow. You can make a mistake, but you can also rectify. And when you rectify, this is the end product you get. And then, thank you to this organization to give you this really great opportunity, and you're taking the organization and making it grow even more. So thank you for doing that for all of us. You're keeping the streets safer, and you don't even have to be a law enforcement. So a community leader like you is what we need the most out here. Thank you for doing that. And this concludes the Ethics Go podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment. Vidal will answer your question. I will text him if there's any, and I'm going to bother you
Don't
with
worry
that.
about it. Don't worry
But
about
also, where is this organization located at? So if anyone wants to.
it. Yes, so Youth Justice Network, we're located, this is the Bronx office on 424 East 147th Street in the Bronx, around the corner from 3rd Avenue and 149th Street. Our Harlem office is 63 West 125th Street on the 4th and 5th floor. And if I do not say the Brooklyn office, they are going to get me. So let me get this.
Nobody want to see the.
And I just want to leave with this. This organization helped me when I was 18 years old, right? Came and provided what I needed from them briefly, and I went on and did my thing. And 15 years later, they saved my life again, right? Not only did I come into this organization and get help as a participant, but I came into the organization and they accepted me as an employee. This place is one of a kind, truly.
We'll leave with that note. Check us next time. Thank you, and we'll see you again.
I'm trying to coexist, exist.